Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and free agency is just 8 days away for the National Football League. And as that dial gets cranked up to 11 in the ensuing days, we are seeing a lot of players get released, meaning more big names on the open market. We'll get into some new names out there as of today, that being Tuesday, March 3rd, and a very viable trade target that just hit the market earlier this morning. We'll also dive into what exactly is Mac Jones's trade market. Is it a first-round draft pick? Can San Francisco even find a deal at all? We'll look into all of that tonight, and I will give you 5 free agents I believe the San Francisco 49ers have to avoid at all cost in 2026. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop your comments in the chat below. I promise I'll get to mostly all of them as the show goes on. And let's dive into the first topic of the show, because I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what exactly is going to happen with Niners backup quarterback Mac Jones this offseason. We know the market for quarterbacks is thin. In the draft, it's mainly 2 guys. It is Mendoza at 1 and Ty Simpson somewhere in the late first, mid-teens, early second range. The free agent quarterbacks are now Kyler Murray and maybe Geno Smith and maybe Tua Tagovailoa and maybe Anthony Richardson. There's not really many options out there, which you would think would help San Francisco drive a hard bargain and be able to get something good back for Mac Jones. And we got a report, or at least some opinions this morning via The Athletic's Jeff Howe, saying that, and I quote here, he believes the 49ers are going to demand, or at least could demand, a first-round draft pick in return for backup quarterback Mac Jones this offseason. The exact quote is, "The Niners don't want a season to go to waste if Brock Purdy goes down again," which has happened a handful of times in recent seasons, but I digress and continue here. Since Jones was a major reason they stayed afloat in 2025, they could rightfully be stubborn and hold out for a first-round pick this offseason. You mirror that and you contrast that with the report that came out a couple days ago, I think via Matt Barrows of The Athletic, who is more in tune with what's happening behind the scenes out there in San Francisco. And he basically said that San Francisco is kind of shocked the market has been crickets. Nobody's calling about Mac Jones. And if they are calling, there really isn't much movement when it comes to making a trade. You're hearing names like Geno Smith and the Vikings, Derek Carr out of retirement at Minnesota. You're hearing Anthony Richardson. You're hearing Kyler Murray. You're not hearing the name Mac Jones out there, which you'd at least believe he's on par with that of Kyler Murray. Yet no one's biting. There are no fish biting on the hook San Francisco's putting out there. Now, San Francisco has said we don't want to trade the guy, but we all know that's how the game is played. That's what you do in negotiations. We don't want to trade him while you're actively trying to trade him. And I think San Francisco benefits. Like, they don't have to deal him away, right? Because if he plays well again or has to play in 2026 and plays well, his market value remains the same, pretty steady, which means next offseason, you can probably get a compensation pick, albeit that'll be in 2028, I believe, because they're a year away. So you will have a big gap in between when you can actually get back the draft pick compensation for Mac Jones if you let him walk in free agency in a year time. But if you want to capitalize on his market now, which I think San Francisco wants to do, hence that 2-year contract they gave him, they need to get fish to bite. You're hearing Malik Willis, Geno Smith, Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, even Jimmy Garoppolo, of all people, has a market. There are talks Jimmy Garoppolo might be the next Arizona Cardinals starting quarterback to be a bridge for whoever they can draft in next year's draft. That's how crazy things are. However, going through team by team, let's try to find what team makes the most sense for Mac Jones, and let's see what they can offer, or at least what they should be willing to offer him or for him going forward. Let's go to the Cardinals. It seems like they want to either keep Jacoby Brissett, they want to sign a bargain bin kind of veteran quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, who has ties to the Mike LaFleur offense they're going to run in Arizona. Those two are in San Francisco together and in Los Angeles together. Now they could be in Arizona together. But on top of that, San Francisco probably doesn't want to deal Mac Jones in the division. Really isn't wise to do that. Okay, Cardinals off the table. That makes sense. How about the Jets? The Jets are a mess. They're making some good moves. Had a great Jermaine Johnson trade for Tavondre Sweat. What do you do in Tennessee? I know there's schematic fits and all that, but the Jets won that deal, in my opinion, on paper. So maybe they aren't as dumb as I think they are, but Aaron Glenn feels like a sitting duck bound to be fired. And I do believe they have to find a veteran quarterback to at least keep things stable. Not Justin Fields, not Tyrod Taylor. They have to find some level of consistency, even if the consistency is mid, that is far better than what they had last year. The rumors are Kyler Murray's going to New York. The rumors are they could be in on people like Joe Flacco and bring him back out there. They just want to be mid for a year. They have their first-round draft picks that are loaded up for the next 2 years. They just want to be mid before they can make that next big jump in 2027. Mac Jones on a one-year deal could be that, but Aaron Glenn also, to me, is fighting for his job, coaching for his job. So they can be an intriguing fit, but it does seem like that they're more akin to not trade something away, rather sign somebody, spend some money, rather than get rid of draft picks they view as highly valuable at this point in time. So the Jets are kind of off the table. The Dolphins have Tua Tagovailoa. They're better off keeping Quinn Ewers, signing Jimmy Garoppolo for nothing, and eating all of Tua's cap hit, dead cap, and saying, sayonara, sucker. We'll see you a different time. They don't feel like the team that will make a deal for another quarterback, either worth high draft picks or a high price. How about the Raiders? Well, they're going to get Fernando Mendoza, first overall in the draft. And if they want to be in the stopgap kind of bridge quarterback type of team, they have Geno Smith, who I know isn't great. I think he's better than what he did last year, but they already have a stopgap in place. And I think Mendoza probably should play on day one. And Geno will probably be happy enough being a backup, getting all that money to do nothing, really to do nothing. So Raiders off the table, Jets off the table, Dolphins off the table, Cardinals off the table. That leaves two teams. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers? They, to me, are an interesting organization because they never truly want to commit to winning. They just like to be a playoff team, win 10 games, win 9 games, be above 500. But that was the Mike Tomlin Pittsburgh Steelers. Now they brought in Mike McCarthy, and the assumption is Aaron Rodgers probably comes back in 2026 for one last ride and gets coached by McCarthy for one final season. There's also reports they like Will Howard, their backup quarterback. I don't know how much I believe that. That seems like posturing to me. So if you're a Niner fan or you want to see Mac Jones get dealt, you are begging Aaron Rodgers to retire, because that way you now have two teams that might be options or trade partners with San Francisco. But if they have Rodgers return, they're off the table. And as soon as you can look at the market and say, wow, it's very robust, it shrivels and shrinks, and you're left with one team that could be a trade partner with the San Francisco 49ers for Mac Jones. And that is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, despite being well coached, despite being, a team that can compete for a playoff spot, are kind of a mess right now. They fired their GM, who's now back in San Francisco. Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores are two of the best coaches in football. Flores is a top 3, top 2, top 1 defensive mind, in my opinion. And Mac Jones makes a lot of sense, knowing that there's a lot of noise and heat and smoke basically saying that they realize they made a mistake picking J.J. McCarthy. They hitched their trailer to his wagon, and then the wheels have fallen off. The wood is broken off, the transmission is in the dumps, and they're leaking oil. And they want to essentially give themselves another year to hopefully get out of or move him at some point. However, within that, and you can maybe say, well, San Francisco can slide in there and make a trade. Mac Jones, 1-year deal. Whew, it's perfect. There's now reports coming out of CBS. I think it's Jonathan Jones who said that while the Colts transition tagged Daniel Jones, they could be lurking for his services. He was in Minnesota a couple years ago. He was the backup to Sam Darnold out there. Maybe the Vikings want Daniel Jones. That is a long shot, in my opinion, but it makes things a little more dicey for San Francisco dealing Mac Jones away, which in return made me ask the question, are the San Francisco 49ers simply asking too much in return for Mac Jones? And I get it. They have the leverage. They can drive a hard bargain. They have no reason to deal him. So you have, the Niners, have the right to say, hey, wow us. If you don't do that, we're not moving him, right? We've talked plenty of times. A team has to at least offer a third-round draft pick because a third-round draft pick gets you more guarantee return compared to a compensation pick. That can be a fourth-round pick. It can be a fifth-round pick. You at least want a third-round draft pick in return for Mac Jones. A lot of people out there, and at some point in time, myself included, believed, a low second-round draft pick for a team like the Jets, the Vikings believe they can compete this year. Mac Jones on a 1-year deal in that offense, they should be able to find some success. However, I am worried that history might be repeating itself in a bad way. You draw back the clock to 2022, right? We all think of that as that was the Brock Purdy emergence here, right? Oh my God, that's when Brock came alive against the Dolphins. You go back to the offseason, what was San Francisco trying to do? They were trying to hand the keys over to Trey Lance and hope that thing worked out. Obviously it didn't, but the plan was give Trey Lance the keys, let Brock Purdy or a veteran quarterback come in a la Nate Sudfeld and be the backup behind him, and we're going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo away. Well, why couldn't San Francisco trade Jimmy away? Yes, had a shoulder injury. That certainly kind of pulled the curtain behind the scenes, said, hey, this is going to be more complicated than we thought it was going to be. However, they also wanted a very high asking price. I think it was a second-round draft pick in return for a quarterback they knew was on a 1-year deal, and it probably wasn't worth the money when it was all said and done. I'm worried that you can capitalize on a terrible quarterback free agent class, maybe the worst quarterback class since 2022, not named Brock Purdy, right? And the Niners might simply be driving too hard of a bargain here. And I get it. They have to, because why would you not? You have leverage. Teams may get desperate. If the Vikings don't get Geno Smith and don't get Daniel Jones, and they're sitting there on draft night like, oh my God, we're in round 2. We got to get a quarterback. McCarthy ain't him. Maybe they will give you a desperation call. But right at this point in time, unless something changes, and there is a long way to go, over a month and a half to go until draft night, and then a week to go to free agency, I just don't know where San Francisco turns, and I'm not truly convinced they're going to be able to trade Mac Jones this offseason for a variety of reasons. One, a dwindling kind of destination. The candidates for being a trade partner are kind of, it's down to about 1 to 2 teams if you kind of really dive into it. And then 2, I think San Francisco believes they're going to get a second-round draft pick or a first-round draft pick, and I don't think a team is going to buy that whatsoever. Really, you are hoping the Vikings somehow just squander an opportunity and don't get the quarterback they want that isn't Mac Jones, because if they do, Mac Jones does not have a market. And that's not what we all thought was going to happen this year, and that's really shocking, to a point where I can almost see teams saying, Mac Jones is not Sam Darnold. And, I know we can all point to and say, well, it's Shanahan. It's oh man, like the Niners are this like rehabilitation center for quarterbacks. Yeah, but not every quarterback's built the same. And Mac Jones can't move like Sam Darnold. Mac Jones, albeit has the arm or similar to the arm of, they play different. And Mac Jones does not give you even the ceiling Sam Darnold can offer you. And so I could see teams kind of being reluctant to buy in and say, well, how much of that is the offense? How much of that is Kyle Shanahan? How much of that is having Chris McCaffrey in your backfield catch checkdowns? How much of that is Mac Jones is more of a one read, kind of quick out, Jimmy Garoppolo-esque quarterback with a better arm than other guys in the market? And I like Mac Jones. Mac Jones won games. He's a quarterback that can win games in the NFL. But what exactly does he do that entices a team besides the Vikings, the Jets, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Cardinals, anybody but the Steelers and the Vikings? And the Steelers have Aaron Rodgers, really, if he comes back. I think he will. Like, Mac Jones is a lesser version from mobility, from an arm strength standpoint, than Sam Darnold was. And I think at that point, a lot of teams, even after Darnold won 13 games the next year with Minnesota, after being in San Francisco, weren't buying him. So why would you buy Mac Jones, who doesn't have a 13-win season under his belt, isn't as mobile, and has a good arm, but a lesser arm than Sam Darnold? I don't know what the market is. And I think Mac Jones is a good quarterback. I think Mac Jones is amongst the top 32 quarterbacks in football. I just don't believe that Mac Jones, outside of his rookie season in which he won 10 games, I believe, and last year with San Francisco, has done much to really kind of rehabilitate his image in the NFL. And a lot of teams will say, well, he's a statue back there, he can't move. It doesn't play much in today's NFL. Now, again, you can win games like that, but there is a harder ceiling to a quarterback like Mac Jones, where on a one-year deal, unless you're desperate, teams are probably more akin to say, we'll give you a fourth-round draft pick. The Vikings have no true need unless, again, they lose out on Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray and Geno Smith to say, okay, we'll give you a third-round draft pick for Mac Jones. I just feel like the market is almost, at this point in time, non-existent. Or if it is going to be existing at some point, you're going to have to wait for people like Kyler Murray to sign. What happened with Tua in the offseason, which I think would lead me to say Mac Jones is probably going to be a San Francisco 49er at this point in time. And I don't think he'll get dealt this offseason, knowing how things have gone. I hope I'm wrong. I want San Francisco to trade him away simply because it helps them in the draft. I would love an extra pick in the top 100. You just really got to hope that a team like the Vikings loses out on their guys, because they're the only team that believes they can win now amongst that grouping of teams that need quarterbacks. And if they get somebody they like, then Mac Jones has no market at all. And he'll be in San Francisco backing up Brock Purdy in 2026. Maybe you want that. That's fine. But tell me down below in the comments, do you think a team actually will trade for Mac Jones in the offseason? I'm not sold just yet, but let's go to the YouTube chat, because we got folks like Niner Goat 16, Lori from Phoenix, and of course, one of our best friends, Strawberry Reacts, chatting it up, having a grand old time. Niner Goat 16 says a first-round draft pick? Where? From the Canadian League? Yeah, I don't see San Francisco, even if they wanted the first-round draft pick in return for Mac Jones, getting that any day of the week, any year in the near future. So, you may have to get some other league to say, we'll give you Mac Jones, or we'll give you our first-round draft pick, which means the equivalent of the undrafted free agent pool in the NFL. Strawberry says here, maybe teams just weren't that impressed with him when he played last year. Everyone says it's Kyle in the system. Kind of already hit on that, but I would not be shocked if some teams were like, yeah, we've seen the fool's gold before. The Raiders are like, we lived it with Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's not do it again. Then Laurie Matthews says this. So the Cardinals are going to be satisfied to suck again next year. I don't think so. I just think it's more about they want to shoot for the stars of the quarterback free agent market, that being Malik Willis. And if they don't get him, then they're going to go to the bridge, mid, below average quarterbacks and Jimmy Garoppolo for a year to give Michael LaFleur a year to kind of set things up, get the offense installed. Then in 2027, in a hopeful better quarterback class, take that big swing at one. But yeah, they're going to go Malik Willis. And if they miss, then they'll look for the mid option below them. They'll be in the Walmart bargain bin on a Friday night looking for a movie to watch. Let's see what else is on here. Strawberry also says Mac isn't going to have much of a market when he hits free agency next year either. I haven't viewed the quarterback free agent class in 2027 because obviously it's subject to change. But you'd have to believe he'd be kind of in the B, upper C tier of the quarterbacks of like, yeah, he's like a fringe starter. Maybe he's like the 28th best quarterback in football, and that's a fine place to be for a person like Mac Jones. Maybe he's higher than that. I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't expect Mac Jones to get a $30 million a year contract next year. But as we've seen, quarterback contracts are escalating year by year. So who knows? But I think you're right. That's why I think San Francisco needs to drop their asking price of a first or second round draft pick and say, hey, give us a third, give us a high end fourth, simply because if you lose him and he signs for almost nothing and you spend some money, you get nothing back. So you have to weigh the kind of opportunity cost in trading him, but I think you're right, Strawberry. I just don't know what he'll be worth when he hits the market. Lori Matthews says this, Mac got a lot more playing time when he was here than Darnold did. You're right. However, Darnold then left and then won 13 games and went to the playoffs the following season with the Vikings. Mac won't have that luxury in 2026. He'll either be behind San Francisco or be elsewhere and traded. So I get what you mean, but Darnold's track record immediately after leaving San Francisco improved again exponentially once he left, which led to him going to Seattle rather than Mac, who's kind of stuck in between of like, I want to be a starter quarterback, but the market isn't in my favor right now. So I get what you mean, but they're a little different in my eyes. Keeping the Faith says, start negotiations high just to settle on what you'd actually accept second rounder. That's the thing, though, is that I get it, right? We've all watched Pawn Stars. Even though what someone brings in is worth $10,000, doesn't mean Rick and the boys are going to give you 10 grand for it, right? So if Mac Jones is a fringe kind of, 20 to 32 starting quarterback in football, and you ask for a first round draft pick on a 1-year contract, you aren't going to get it. That isn't the problem with me. But my fear is that they're starting so high, by the time all the other quarterbacks are in their place and the market's dried up, they're like, okay, how about a second round draft pick? And I don't even think Mac Jones is worth that right now with the guys out there. Like, rank the current quarterbacks on the market. Malik Willis, Kyler Murray, then add in Tua Tagovailoa, Geno Smith. At some point, Anthony Richardson gets dealt. Like, those are 5 guys who, depending on the system, the scheme, and the team, they may view better or circumstantially fitting them better than Mac Jones does. So I get what you mean, keeping the faith. I just don't know exactly if going from a first and settling for a second is reality. It sounds more like shooting for a third and settling for a fourth. It feels like reality rather than what you're saying there. Miner Goat 16 says, CJ Stroud doing CJ Stroud things next season might push the envelope on a Mac trade. Maybe, but I think Davis Mills not there. Didn't they sign him to an extension, I think? So they're good with the backup stuff. Keeping the faith also adds this. I almost feel like a third round comp pick for Mac in 2027 is just as appealing to San Francisco. 2027 draft to be stacked. In theory, maybe you're right. However, compensation picks aren't guaranteed. The Niners need to get guaranteed compensation for Mac Jones because the compensation formula is based on what they get on the market. but also what San Francisco spends in return. So if they let Matt go via free agency and he signs a deal, let's say worth a third round compensation pick, but they sign a handful of guys that are in that kind of same tier, they don't get a third round compensation pick back. So the Niners need to get guaranteed compensation, not hopefully fingers crossed waiting for a high end comp pick, which again, that would mean he's getting like top of the market money. And I don't know if he'll get that. So I get what you mean. I just don't think if San Francisco wants to find the right trade for Mac Jones, you're not going to find a first round draft pick or a team willing to give you high end picks for him. I think if they're smart and they do like Curtis Rourke or AJ Martinez or want to sign Kirk Cousins, who knows, trading Mac Jones for a late day 2, early day 3 pick might be the best option as they go throughout the off season. But let's continue here with the show because we got some roster moves. Today was the deadline to franchise tag or transition tag impending free agents. And San Francisco said, you know what? We're not going to budge. They did not franchise tag Eddie Pinheiro. They did not franchise tag Jawan Jennings. So good on them. And yesterday, via Jordan Schultz, I believe of, where is he from? It doesn't matter. It's not important. Maybe it's Fox Sports, The Score. It doesn't matter. He says the Niners are not, and they did not tender RFA, that is a restricted free agent, Kalia Davis, a contract, making him a free agent in 2026. The Pinheiro thing makes sense. Why give a guy $7 million for 1 year when you can get him, 2 for 12, 2 for 11? I don't know. He'll be a lot cheaper than $7 million in a year for Pinheiro. But I also love the fact that San Francisco isn't, and they won't do this either, but it just really feels like that the Niners not tendering Kalia Davis maybe isn't a sign they don't want him back, because there are some things Kalia Davis does and can offer that are kind of valuable for San Francisco, right? He played the entire year, didn't miss a single game. This team needs health. However, Kalia Davis can't be starting for you for 17 games. That was the issue. They didn't have any depth or starting caliber players. But if he's your 5th defensive tackle, it's fine. It's fine. I don't hate that. And I think this all comes down to money, right? Why would you give Kalia Davis $3.5 million for 1 year? He ain't worth that. Maybe 2.2, 1.8, but he's not worth 3.5. And you have Alfred Collins. You have CJ West. There are other guys, there are other guys that you can go out there and sign. John Franklin Myers, and there's plenty of more guys. That's kind of the big one out there right now. But if you can save a potential $3.5 million and avoid paying that, you're better off doing so for a guy who's not worth it. But I could see San Francisco bringing him back on a cheap deal. 1-2 years, just be a depth piece. That's what he is. He's not going to get a starting contract anywhere else. So it's small stuff. I think it comes down to the money. That's all it does. We have a question from NinerGoat16 here in the YouTube chat. They ask, after one season, how did your mock draft turn out? Larry Kruger's ended up terrible. I don't know what Larry had going on last year, so I can't talk about that at all. Mine, what was my mock draft last year? I think I was torn in the first round between Walter Nolan and Micah Williams, knowing that was who San Francisco was going to take. I think we ended up predicting Michael, but we loved Nolan. So either one of those guys, it kind of depends on your flavor of the week. We like both of them a lot, but I did like Nolan more coming out of the first round than Michael, but understood the reasoning for drafting Michael. I'm going to go back and try to find my mock draft, my final mock draft. Usually we do 4 in the month of April leading into the draft, so stay tuned for that as the years go on, or as the months go on, excuse me. But I don't know exactly off the top of my head what my mock draft was last year, because I did a lot of them. Let me see. Give me some time though. Let's see. What was my final mock draft? Because That's the preseason. I'm going through my notes here on my phone. Forgive me. I know this is a bad podcast right now, but still. Just give me some time. Lord Matthews says, yeah, Sterling, you were the only one who was excited with the pick on draft night. I did like Michael a lot. I really did. Here's my draft grades after the draft. I gave Michael a B plus, knowing what he would be. And I think if he was healthy, the level of run defense he would have given, I think would have warranted a B plus. But I think not having Bosa, not having Michael, and the crapshoot that was the defensive line last year, that brings it down for sure. I gave Alfred Collins an A. So I love the Alfred Collins pick. Funny enough, I gave the Nick Martin pick a D plus. I gave him some potential, but was like, I don't like this pick at all. I did give the Upton Stout pick a B minus, so I did like that pick a lot. And I gave the CJ West pick an A plus. That's the way things go. I gave the Junior Burgeon pick a C. I gave the Connor Colby pick a B. So I was kind of good on Colby in that case, thinking he might be something. And he's a fine backup guard. He's not going to start for you. I did not like the Jordan Watkins pick that much. Gave it a C plus. Jordan James gave him a B. Thought he'd play more last year. Clearly didn't. And I gave the Marquis Siegel pick a C. Curtis Work a C minus. And so, I will defend the Michael pick a lot. I think it was a good pick. I think as the years go on, you'll see, how good he can become. But again, got to be healthy. Laurie Matthews says, yes, Sterling was on 95.7 the game that night and had to talk the others into it. I find myself doing that often. Maybe I'm too positive on draft night, but I was positive about Michael afterwards. In fact, I released a podcast that night, I think, if not the next day, pretty much saying that Michael is Eric Armstead here to free up Nick Bosa. So, we were on the money, just, wasn't exactly right because he got hurt, which sucks. But let's see what we have. This was my final mock draft to answer a Niner Goat 16's question. I had Michael going 11, nailed that one. And we had San Francisco drafting Darius Alexander in round 2, but after Collins went there, so that's fine. We had the Niners picking Charles Grant in the 3rd round, which they wanted to do, but the Raiders sniped him a pick in front of them. So we were on the right case. I had a big miss in round 3. I had Chris Paul Jr., Pooh Paul. His short arms killed him. And he didn't play at all last year, so a big whiff on my end. I think the NFL draft world was higher on him than I think the NFL was itself. But we had David Walker round 4. He tore his ACL in the preseason with the Buccaneers. We'll see how that goes. We had a couple of trade up, but other than that, I think we were fine. Obviously, what the NFL draft and the NFL views of players isn't what PFF does, the Draft Network does, and others do, including myself. But let's table the draft talk for a different night because we have so much more to get into. But first, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, drop your comments down below. And more importantly, if you want to go to the MLB, the World Baseball Classic, spring training is in full swing. The NBA is still happening, even though the Warriors are god-awful in 2026. You can use our promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And to kick things back off into the show, let's highlight a comment by Joseph Ehrenberg, who simply says, yo, what's up, Joseph? And let's get back into the show because today a lot of teams didn't tag their players. And we got some news that a trade could be happening or teams are wanting to trade some of their players that you'd be shocked might be on the move this offseason. I think the most notable name that was brought up today that was not tagged, although it was obvious he wasn't going to get tagged, was the Bengals not franchise tagging Trey Hendrickson. They're a disaster. They're a disaster. The Bengals are just gross, whether it's Hendrickson, how they dealt with him, the Shamar Stewart thing, just what are we doing? However, a lot of Niner fans were like, the Niners need to trade for Trey Hendrickson at the trade deadline. And those same people are like, the Niners need to go out there and sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency. I would say pump the brakes. In fact, slam on your brakes. I don't think San Francisco needs to be in the market for a player like Trey Hendrickson. A lot of you out there are like, well, he's Justin Smith 2.0. They're not the same player at all. Yes, they're both ex-Bengals that are going to be free agents, and they're white defensive ends. They're not the same player. Don't make that comp. I think more importantly here is the price tag he's expected to get, which is roughly around $25.5 million per year, according to Spotrac. I'm not doing that at all. If you're not paying $30 million for Alec Pierce, you're not giving a 31-year-old Trey Hendrickson off a back injury $25.5 million. And that comes into my next drawback of, I don't want to sign players that are hurt. The Niners were decimated last year by injuries. And if they want to get younger, okay, then we got to get healthier too. And the Niners have yet to truly be healthy outside of 2019. And even in that year, D Ford kind of got banged up and Quan Alexander got hurt at the end of the playoffs and was terrible in the Super Bowl. And then in 2023, they were pretty healthy. But then everybody got hurt in the Super Bowl itself, Debo and Kittle and everybody else. So the NFL, more now than ever, although it's always been, is a war of attrition. Usually the healthiest teams win. Seattle Seahawks, the Rams a couple years ago, Philadelphia 2 years ago, the Chiefs almost every year against San Francisco. The healthier teams usually win. San Francisco should not be spending upwards of $25 million on players, even if they have great production, if they do have serious injury history. And Trey Hendrickson has serious injury history now going into his age 31 season. Maybe the asking price drops for him because of that, but the odds are whoever doesn't get Max Crosby will turn their head towards Hendrickson and give him a pretty big payday, probably for a 3 to 4 year deal. That said, before we get into the Jonathan Greenard trade talk, I want to give you my 5 free agents I believe the San Francisco 49ers need to avoid in 2026. And some of you out there may want these guys. I'm sitting back and I'm like, no. I've also brought up a couple of these guys before in previous shows, but I'll do it again for the sake of argument. Man. The first one, pretty obvious one. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, keep your hands away from Tyreek Hill. Torn ACL last year. What is the speed like? Smaller receiver. I know he has production. He was great in his prime. I don't know what he'll be, but okay. Maybe you can, he's got speed, home run threat ability. However, the dude is terrible. He's abused women. He's abused men. He's abused kids. Don't touch him. Pass on Tyreek Hill at all costs. I do not care about the speed. I don't care about the production. I don't care about the scheme fit. No, they need a player like him. No. The next player, another wide receiver. The Niners. Why get younger? Why get more explosive when you can retread and rekindle an old flame like Deebo Samuel? That's right. Stay away from Deebo Samuel. You ripped the Band-Aid off last offseason for a 5th-round draft pick. Do not run back with open arms saying, Deebo, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. You made the right move. He'll be 30 years old this year. Yeah, can he help you in some aspects? Sure. Can he alleviate pressure off Christian McCaffrey underneath? Maybe. Can he give you more physicality after the catch? Yeah. But he also will clog up a roster spot. He'll beg for the football. And I don't know. I just don't feel like you're stepping into the future by signing a player like Deebo Samuel. You want to get younger, faster, cheaper, You want to have guys on 3 to 4 year contracts, build that next core for Brock Purdy to have as he hopefully ascends to being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Signing Deebo Samuel is regression and not something the Niners should sign up for. I don't care how much you love him. I don't care that he's my boy. We drafted him. I love playing with Deebo. I don't care. Do not sign Deebo Samuel in 2026. The next player on my list, albeit isn't a big name, I could see San Francisco, knowing they like to bargain bin hunt on the offensive line, saying, James Daniels, ex-Miami Dolphin, just got released. He can make some sense. That price tag might be really cheap. He could be a stopgap at left guard with a draft pick behind them. And I would say, look, sure, he can play right guard. He can play left guard. He's a bigger-bodied guy than Spencer Burford. However, even if that player comes discounted, there is so much injury history that I'm like, not a chance. You're a walking red flag, buddy. I will blacklist you off of this team. No. 2020, since 2020, James Daniels has suffered 2, not 1, but 2 torn pectorals, a groin injury, and a ruptured Achilles. If you're an offensive lineman, you got to use your lower body and your upper body. Not to mention, he's a subpar run blocker. That's not what you want on San Francisco's offensive line. So stay away from Tyreek Hill and Deebo Samuel and our latest person, that being James Daniels. Well, we got 2 more. 2 more that you may not like because some of you out there are seeing you on social media say, I want to sign this guy. And I've talked about this a lot because I have been under the interpretation, and it really felt like last year was the year that the San Francisco 49ers were going to sign Joey Bosa and reunite the Bosa Bros for the first time in the NFL. But now in 2026, don't do it. This is the perfect year for Joey Bosa to capitalize on his market. This is the first year that Joey Bosa could sit back and say, well, I played 15 games. I'm healthy. Sign with the new team and then immediately get hurt. If I'm San Francisco, with the injury history our guys have had in that darn substation back there, which may not be causing problems, I don't want to sign Joey Bosa. He'll want too much money, and there is a lengthy injury history behind him. You cannot not sign Joey Bosa. You have Nick Bosa off 3 torn ACLs. You have Mykal Williams off a torn ACL that you should not be looking to push to the edge 3. He needs to be your edge 2 that can slide inside. You have Bryce Huff, who I really like behind him, and you probably should draft somebody else that can become the edge 2 or 3 once Bryce Huff is gone via free agency next year. You cannot plug Mykel's hole with somebody else, and Joey Bosa will want to play. He's not going to be okay being a rotational piece behind a rookie that played 7 games last year and his brother. It's not him. He'll want to play. And Joey Bosa, despite having a good year last year, has become more name value than production. He has 77 career sacks, 86 career tackle for losses, and 223 career pressures, according to Pro Football Reference. Yet, the last couple years, really since 2021, he hasn't had a single season above 6 sacks and 25 pressures. Why would you spend $10+ million on a guy who doesn't get you 6 pressures or 6 sacks and 25 pressures? You can draft guys that can do that. You don't pay for guys that can do that. I would not touch Joey Bosa at all. I get it. The Bosa Bros, Ohio State Buckeyes, family. Oh, I don't care. The time for that is gone and it's past. Move on. The last one, though, the final or among the final free agents I think San Francisco should not sign this offseason is tight end David Njoku. I know San Francisco is trying to find the next guy behind George Kittle. They need a potential stopgap, a bridge to get them back to a healthier George Kittle, not knowing when he'll return this season. He might come back week 1. My assumption is week 4 or 5. Achilles are tough. You never know. Modern medicine's awesome, but you want to give guys a little bit of leeway to return to football activities. There are some positive signs there for sure, but the Niners, a lot of people were saying, go get Isaiah Likely. How about David Njoku? Go sign that guy and this guy. This draft class has a ton of tight ends, and you have Jake Tunges. I don't think San Francisco will cut Luke Farrell. So you're probably going to walk in the next year with 2 guys you believe will be on your roster throughout the season, then a returning George Kittle at some point. I'd rather draft somebody than sign David Njoku, who, if you sign him, he'll want to start. He'll want to be tight end number 2. And I get it. You can draw up, what can Kyle do with Njoku and Kittle and McCaffrey? Oh my God, he's a great receiving threat, right? Over his career, multiple seasons of 500 plus receiving yards. He can catch, he can move. However, right now, according to Spotrac, he's supposed to get $10 million per year. Now, that can be incorrect, but do you want to give a tight end behind George Kittle, who we know San Francisco, they have Kyle Juszczyk, they have Jake Tunges, they have Luke Farrell. Why would you pay $10 million for a guy you're probably not going to use that much unless he's somehow your big slot? But okay, maybe you can say, cut Luke Farrell. Njoku can block. No, he can't. He is, according to Pro Football Focus, which isn't perfect, but it's a guide, the 79th ranked pass blocker last year and the 90th ranked run blocker. Why would San Francisco say, yeah, we'll give that guy $10 million when you know at some point Kittle will come back? Draft a guy, Sam Roush. I love Jack Endry from Texas. Give me that guy early day 3. Those are better picks, way better picks than signing David Njoku. So don't get Joey Bosa. Don't sign Tyreek Hill. Don't sign James Daniels. Don't sign David Njoku. And for the love of God, do not sign Deebo Samuel. Those are the 5 free agents I am begging San Francisco to avoid this off season. Calachipto says free agency is pretty overrated anyways. Most signings don't pan out. You're right. And I always tell fans, it doesn't matter how much money you have to spend. It's how you spend it that matters. You see teams all the time. They have $78 million in free agency and they buy all these players and half of them suck. It's about who you sign that matters, not how many players you sign. And San Francisco said they want to be quote unquote targeted. They better not be targeting the 5 guys that I already listed. Aaron from 49ers First Takes gives a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Aaron. Looking forward to our show on Friday. He says, I'm getting excited for free agency, even though they aren't going to participate, and it's nothing more than due diligence season. #Niners while it's closed. I don't think San Francisco will sit out free agency. I would just prepare yourself for something along the lines of last year. The Niners are always going to be in the discussion of what team fits this player. Like everybody keeps saying Alec Pierce. Yeah, 31 teams want Alec Pierce that aren't named the Colts. You're going to see Trey Hendrickson and big names like that out there. Oh, San Francisco makes sense. No, they don't. They told you last year what they're trying to do. Trying to build a young team around the aging vets. You don't go pay for older guys. That said, I do think San Francisco can spend a nice chunk of change, however, on 2 or 3 guys. And the Niners would be smart to, in my opinion, go pay for players like Jalen Naylor, Jalen Hawkins, funny enough, and get your safety in that place. Maybe you go see if Leo Chanel is cheap, albeit a linebacker. It may be kind of a positional value that you don't believe in because you have a great kind of linebacker, machine in the room already with your coaching staff. I don't think they'll sit it out. I just think the big moves will be extend Trent, redo Bosa's deal, free up cap space, cut Ayuk, then go get some cheaper guys that you believe can start for you. Jalen Naylor, Jalen Hawkins, Leo Chanel. You're going to go buy a veteran defensive tackle. Maybe, I think it's David Oyamada from the Falcons, who was really good last year for Atlanta. Plug him into Raheem's defense again. That can make some sense. They'll go get they'll go re-sign Samuel Kawanu and Jake Tunges. Maybe they'll get Ebiketie from the Falcons too and kind of build up the depth behind those guys. But you're right, Aaron. I don't think they'll be high-end spenders. So I'm hoping that they don't target who I listed. They shouldn't target, but also I think they'll be more of the kind of C, B tier free agents, kind of the 1 or 2 year deal guys that you're like, oh, that's a good deal, but guys aren't going to break the bank because they got to pay Brock Purdy still, and George Kittle, and Nick Bosa, and Trent, and McCaffrey, and Warner, and Lenore. And eventually, hopefully at some point, Pearsall booms, they got to pay him too. And hopefully guys in previous draft classes that are still there start to kind of make their hay and they got to pay them as well. So we'll see what happens. But I think you're right, Aaron. They will be sitting out, not free agency, but sitting out of the big negotiations for larger or high-end players. They want to play in the kind of smaller pool that may have some big fish, if you will, which is never a bad thing in my opinion. Cal Chipto says, give me a value DT, a guard, an edge, a safety, a wide receiver. Kind of sounds like Oyamada, Ebiketie, Hawkins, Naylor, and you can pick a guard, whether it's John Simpson from the Jets or somebody else, Joel Bitonio, I don't know out there. It does sound like we're on the same page, Cal Chipto. And here comes Dre Area Sports saying the Niners need Trey Hendrickson. Dre, you need to lay off the weed. No, they don't. No, they don't. But good to hear you and see you in here, buddy. Looking forward to our show on Friday. Lori Matthews says, you can pick up quality players without breaking the bank. They need a few veterans to add to young guys. I agree. Then Strawberry asks here, do you think they'll restructure Brock's contract? I don't. I think the only contracts they need to touch this offseason is Trent, because they have to, Bosa, because they have to, then, of course, Ayuk, because they have to. Other than that, I wouldn't touch many other contracts that they just did a year ago. Those aren't real. Like, once the cap hits get big, then you can talk about it. But right now, no. Brock's probably locked into the same contract. Dre asks us, do you think they'll keep Bryce Huff? Unless something changes, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. I don't think you want to get rid of Huff knowing you don't have any options behind him. There's guys that can draft, Cassius Howell, Joseph's from Tennessee, Lawrence from UCF, and there's more guys we'll get into as the mock drafts come out soon. But I think Bryce Huff, he's really cheap, and when they were healthy, was giving you really good production paired with Michael. So I don't see a reason to cut Bryce at all. I think they have to go find a 4th, 5th, and 6th edge rusher, which Samuel Kawanu, a draft pick, and then Ebiketie, done right there. There's your guys. And you can add more to that room, but you got Bosa, you got Huff, you got Michael. Who's the next 3 guys? That's the question. You can bring 2 guys back. You can draft a guy and Samo, then sign somebody. Then you're kind of done. You can go find some camp bodies too, but no. Bryce Huff was good when they were healthy, which they just weren't healthy. I know he has some money and some guarantees there, and they may want to save kind of a little chunk of change, but I don't know. I just don't see. I'd rather them redo that deal than cut him. But the cap hit's super low. There is some guarantees there. However, I mean, Jed York is hurting for $10 million. I don't think so. I think Bryce Huff for 1 year is worth $10 million of guarantees. Ski Shice D22 says this, the Niners free agency should be Jonathan Greenard, John Franklin Myers, and either get Wan'Dale Robinson or Jalen Naylor. I am with you on Naylor. I do love myself some John Franklin Myers. And it's a great transition into our next topic of conversation, because let's talk about Jonathan Greenard and why I think this might be the move for San Francisco this offseason. Because we're all sitting around saying, San Francisco really needs to make not a big move, but a move that has immediate and like some real impact, right? Whether it was the trade deadline, we knew San Francisco, and the Niners know this. John Lynch said it himself, we can't have a 25 sack team. Like, that's not, you can't win that way. It was a big reason why they struggled so much against opposing offenses. They could not get to the quarterback. And even if they got there, which is rare, they couldn't finish. And I do think there is a way, a path to maybe getting not the number one edge rusher, that being Max Crosby, in maybe some people's eyes, not the number two edge rusher in Trey Hendrickson, but they can smartly add a guy who's under control for 2 years, which may constitute cutting Bryce Huff, which in this case I wouldn't be mad against if it meant they're trading and acquiring Jonathan Greenard from the Vikings. The Vikings right now are in somewhat of cap hell. They are trying to shed contracts, and they are looking to deal away Jonathan Greenard, who I think they signed last offseason. And the dead cap hit is $9.9 million for them, but they can save 12 and about a third $1 million in the process, thus making him an ideal player to trade away this offseason. An acquiring team would get $19 million in cap hits the next 2 years. So not the biggest cap hit, certainly reworkable in the grand scheme of things, much lower than Crosby and Hendrickson and Bosa and guys like that, Parsons. Greenard's more of in that kind of B- tier of edge rushers, but he's really good. And I think that when you talk about having versatility to move Mike Hill around towards the inside, towards the outside, and if he can grow into a better pass rusher, getting more dangerous from the interior, that could be a move. And also, you're going to play more 5-man fronts, play some penny fronts. Greenard gives you more versatility. Kind of played in that with Brian Flores last year with the Vikings, and I think Greenard might be, if you want to talk about the big splash, this is the move I would make. Like, Greenard is awesome. He's somebody who I wanted the Niners to get, or, hopeful of like, oh, you think that it'd be awesome. When the Texans were kind of moving off of him, I was like, get Greenard. Greenard's awesome. He gets paid a lot of money in Minnesota, but now San Francisco has some funds to spend. I would love for that to happen. But right now, Greenard has $4 million of guarantees set to become fully guaranteed on March 13th. So they have about 10 days to get this thing done if the Vikings truly care about the $4 million, which I'm pretty sure they do. And I think San Francisco has the ability to get a deal done because Kwesi, who is now in San Francisco front office, was the person who gave Greenard the big contract. He'd know him a ton. They can call D'Amico Ryans, and say, hey, he was in Houston. What do you think of this guy? And I'm sure at some point San Francisco's like, we know he's a darn good player. He's awesome. But since 2023, so a 2-year sample size, right? 2 years? 2 years. I think it's a 3-year sample size. Excuse me. A 3-year sample size. 23, 24, and 25. This is why San Francisco needs to acquire Jonathan Greenard. They can go sign bargain bin defensive tackles. They can cut Bryce Huff, get out of that contract if they get Greenard, because the last 3 years, he's averaged 61 pressures, 9.5 sacks, a 77 pass rushing grade, a 72 run defense grade, and 35.5 run stops per season. He can play the run, he can play the pass. Yeah, it might kind of block Michael to some degree, but when you're playing five-man fronts, it won't. It'll still give you plenty of money to go out there and fix your defensive line. You can go to the draft. It also takes pressure off the need to find, I think, a great or a really good edge rusher in round 1 or 2. You can go get a receiver, go get a defensive tackle, go get a guard, or whatever you want to do. It just gives you more versatility. You have Keon White, you have Samo. Guys like Onyemata and Ebiketie aren't going to ask for a lot of money. This, to me, is the splash. You want to find that kind of B-plus player opposite Bosa. You're not going to get the two dogs. You're not going to go out there and get, the Crosby and Bosa combo. Those don't exist. They never happen. And when they do, they're usually two guys drafted by the exact same team near the exact same year on the exact same regime. They're not acquired via trades. And if they are, maybe your secondary sucks. Maybe your offense isn't very good. The Niners, I think, have the ability to almost kind of redo the D4 deal on a lesser contract, not give him a 5-year deal immediately. And I don't think Greenard would cost you a second-round draft pick. I think Greenard could maybe cost a third and a fifth. Maybe it's a third and a third next year. I would do that in a heartbeat. That to me is like gold. Like, yes, get Greenard in here. You get those picks back basically if Mac Jones leaves. I would do the Jonathan Greenard trade right now. We'll cut Bryce Huff, sign Ebiketie for a cheaper contract, and it makes everything slide into place. Michael goes to your 5-tech on 5-man fronts. You still have some nice depth behind them if they can all stay healthy. And if you walk into the offseason or in training camp, you got Bosa, Michael, Greenard, Collins, West, Samo, Ebiketie, Keon White, and a couple of draft picks or kind of veteran defensive tackles in place. That's a really good defensive line. Like, that's really impressive. Raheem would have the inside-outside versatility, run some 5-man fronts, some penny fronts. Like, you could really get creative and do some things with that. Greenard can drop in coverage at times too, albeit he isn't great at it. He can still do it. And a large part of the Bryce Huff discussion of cutting him, going back to what Dre Area Sports asked us, was, would they cut him? A lot of that simply comes down to schematic fit. And I don't know how they view Bryce Huff. Don't know exactly what they view his workload as, how much he'll play. Like, what does Raheem want? We don't know, right? So from a money standpoint, it doesn't make sense to cut Huff because he's pretty cheap. But if Morris says, hey, we can get Greenard or get a couple of guys that fit our scheme better that I can utilize and know I like a lot, then you might see Bryce Huff go. I can also see San Francisco trading Bryce Huff away. Like, that's on the table compared to this cutting him outright. Like, that can be kind of the underrated Bryce Huff for a 5th round pick, Bryce Huff for a 4th round pick. Who knows? I think he played better. And maybe it's more of a 6th, but it's like you can get something back for him than cutting him for free. Teams would like Bryce Huff on their roster. San Francisco may like Bryce Huff on their roster, but of the people, don't give me Bosa, Joey Bosa. Don't give me Hendrickson. Don't give me Max Crosby. Give me Jonathan Greenard. When a guy averages 9.5 sacks, 61 pressures, and has been healthy, a late bloomer that's been good for 3 years, that knows your defense, played in Houston, also played in Minnesota. Like, yes, yes, these are the guys San Francisco needs to sign. Evan says here in the YouTube chat to round things out for us, yes, Michael is stronger than Keanu White and provides a strong presence and run stop on the line. Very versatile, a strong inside man to complement Alfred Collins, and we're good. Just need to get a big guy there like LW. I'm assuming you mean Leonard Williams. I agree. The Niners, if they can get Greenard, move Michael inside, and they can have some fun. And that defense looks really good. Obviously, draft to go, free agency to go, but you're 8 days away, I think, from free agency. I think the 11th is the first day. And it'll be fun to see what San Francisco does. But right now, there is 10 days until Greenard's guarantees kick in, which the clock's ticking. If I'm San Francisco and you want to trade Mac Jones for Greenard and a pick, or, Mac Jones and a pick for Greenard, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Quarterbacks are worth more. Work something out. That could be like you can finagle your way into getting a really good defense if San Francisco is open for a player-for-player deal, or even giving up something more to get Greenard because he is awesome. But what do you think about that? Do you agree? The one move San Francisco must make this offseason, the one big deal they have to make this offseason is trading for Jonathan Greenard. Did I convince you? Or are you like, Sterling, you're freaking nuts? No way. And are you with me by putting people like Joey Bosa, David Njoku, Tyreek Hill, James Daniels, and Deebo Samuel on the no sign list? Do you like that? Do you hate that? Drop your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave us your 5-star audio podcast review on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you get your podcast. And final thing, if you could, use our promo code 49ersAccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the rest of your week. We got some videos and content coming out on Friday for you. Maybe there'll be a Pig in a Pickle Krug Show Thursday night collab. Stay tuned for that. But draft content coming out very, very soon. But until next time, my name is Sterling Bennett. And as always, stay faithful.